carême a explosé. Le stade a explosé.
Au fond des filets. Dans le haut de la boîte à pain.
Est-ce qu'on est rendu au bout du développement personnel du podcast, Olivier? Parce que je veux poser une question à Max. Est-ce que, là, c'est la question plus corsée, mais aussi développement personnel. Tu as 2 enfants, puis tu as aussi 2 postes où tu dois partager. Est-ce que tu as appris ces dernières années ou ces derniers mois un peu plus sur le partage, en quelque sorte? Parce que, pour situer les gens, avec James, c'est 50-50, hein, ou plus ou moins. Avec Dane aussi, c'est 50-50. Avec 2 enfants aussi, par moment, c'est 50-50.
À la maison, je vais te donner de mon tout. Sur le terrain,
Okay.
c'est différent, je vais jouer. Mais c'est de mon côté sportif, mon côté d'athlète. Évidemment, il y a des décisions qui sont prises en club puis en sélection. C'est 2 choses complètement différentes où, selon moi, en club, on doit tous jouer 100% des minutes. Puis c'est la nature de notre chose pour être appelé en équipe nationale. Puis en ce moment, on est en pleine compétition. You're getting this in with Dane, which has been fantastic. We've been pushing one another. Puis c'est ça qui fait en sorte que notre relation est si belle, c'est que on sait très bien que le poste est ouvert, on va avoir nos occasions et puis on doit être à notre meilleur pour, avoir le poste, mais pour l'équipe aussi. Puis c'est une des raisons, selon moi, pourquoi notre équipe performe, parce que derrière, on est solide, puis notre groupe comprend bien cette dynamique.
C'est dur, au niveau personnel, d'avoir des relations avec tes collègues, parce que tu as une position de gardien de but aussi, tu es en compétition constamment. C'est 2 bons gars, je connais bien James, je connais un peu Dane. C'est dur d'avoir une relation de travail avec eux, puis une relation personnelle?
Pas du tout, pas du tout. Franchement, on est assez mature, puis on se connaît très bien à l'extérieur du terrain. Personnellement, on comprend quelles caractéristiques on a. Et donc, les décisions sportives, elles sont là et on les respecte. Puis, personnellement, moi, je veux toujours que mes amis, parce que oui, on est des coéquipiers, mais c'est des amis aussi, fassent bien. Puis, honnêtement, je vais me donner une tape dans le dos ici. Là. Je souhaite le meilleur pour mes gars. Tu sais. Je suis quelqu'un de nature qui pense de cette manière-là. Et donc, par rapport à ça, je trouve ça extrêmement important de soutenir un ami aussi à travers tout ça, même si on est en direct compétition côté sportif.
En même temps, il ne te reste pas 4 Coupes du Monde non plus. Tu as 31 ans, là?
Ouais, déjà.
On est 42, là. On va y aller mollo sur le « je me sens vieux » à 31.
Il s'en va tranquillement, Max.
Il parle depuis que j'ai 15 ans, là.
Non, mais, mais tu as quand même des choix à faire.
J'ai joué avec Hassoun, là.
Oui, ça c'est vrai. En fait, Hassoun a joué avec toi. Tu as même joué comme attaquant avec l'équipe réserve de l'Impact de Montréal. Ça, je ne l'oublierai jamais. Ça montre à quel point la réalité de la Ligue réserve en MLS a évolué depuis ce temps-là. Mais je disais, il ne te reste pas 3-4 opportunités à être gardien à la Coupe du Monde. Est-ce qu'en ce moment, tu réfléchis à l'an prochain? Parce que tu as peut-être une décision à prendre dans l'entre-saison aussi, si à Portland, on continue de partager le temps?
Non, ouais, j'ai pas d'aller d'option l'année prochaine. Je suis agent libre, donc évidemment, ça va être une grosse entre-saison pour moi. Et côté
viendrais-tu à Montréal?
Faut parler, je suis agent libre, donc je ferme aucune porte nulle part.
On a des gens de tourisme Montréal dans la salle aussi, je pense, si tu veux. Voilà, puis on a des agents d'immeubles aussi.
Ah ouais?
Ouais. Okay. J'ai un sous-sol aussi à la maison, si tu veux.
Y a-tu de la place pour 4?
Il y a une toilette, elle n'est pas finie, mais il y a une toilette.
Ouais, et donc, évidemment, il va y avoir une grosse décision à prendre dans l'entre-saison, mais pour l'équipe nationale, vous me connaissez personnellement, puis sportivement, je suis quelqu'un qui est à 100% impliqué dans le projet, et puis pour moi, c'est la plus grande fierté, c'est de représenter mon équipe nationale.
There's a lot of buzz, obviously, around Canada's second World Cup in a row. It's in our backyard. We were saying it earlier on. I think every ounce of experience that anybody has had in a World Cup or around a World Cup will be extremely precious. 2010, apart from vuvuzelas, like what's left of it that can be used for next year, if anything?
Well, I think we defined internally with that team what the character and the X factor was, and it was this grittiness and this self-belief. We weren't the best footballing team at that time, but we had a group of guys that had been through some real moments together and were really prepared for it. And I've had that in my head a lot as we're building this team and trying to have my finger on the pulse of what's the character, what's the X factor in this team.
And we're also seeing the States maybe going away from that as well, so it's flexible.
Well, and I think our X factor, I think we have two things. One is our speed and power, our athleticism, our dynamic play. Like, I told them right when I took over that we were one of the fastest teams that I'd ever coached, and we needed to always play like it. And I can say that after, I think we all can say after watching the team play over the last 16, 18 months that this is an exciting team, it's a dynamic team, it's an aggressive team, and it's a team that understands how to do that together. So that part, I feel like we're really on track, and we're way ahead of schedule of where I was hoping we would be. And then the other part is this idea of the character, right? But it's been funny because the character of the group is sometimes that they're so selfless and so committed to each other that sometimes
so Canadian.
Yes, that we lack a little grittiness, and we lack a little arrogance, and we lack a little savviness, and communication. And so this has been, he's probably heard me say communication in the last month
1,000 times.
But I'm trying to take them all a little bit out of their comfort zone and trying to expand their personalities and their presence in themselves and in the group, and most importantly on the pitch. And I think we really felt the difference in those games in Europe, and we're building upon that right now. So I think they know me as they're getting to know me really well as a coach. Max had the benefit of having been coached by me already, but I was very young. You were very young. It was almost like a lifetime ago for both of us. But they're getting to understand me as a person, and how important I value their opinions, how important I value them as people, and how much they have to make sure that they inject that into everything we do. And I really believe that the more we do that, the better performances we're going to see from the team. And by the way, like the last 2 camps, training sessions, video sessions, we've been doing some little team building stuff, and like guys are really locked in. Like there's a different feel about the team right now that has us all, I think, on the inside really excited for what we're building. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Max, explique-nous donc, parce qu'on a entendu beaucoup le point de vue de communication. Si vous avez lu des trucs sur l'équipe canadienne, on l'a entendu beaucoup, où ça a percolé dans le public. C'est quoi le problème de la communication ou la problématique? Ce sont les jeunes, ce sont sur le terrain, c'est à l'extérieur, c'est des personnalités?
Je pense qu'on a une nouvelle génération, numéro 1 dans notre équipe. Il y a un vent oui, il y a une page qui a été tournée à un certain point.
Donc le monde vous êtes jeune comme vestiaire.
On est plus jeune, mais on est un peu plus mature sur le terrain, sur les moments où sur le terrain on est en train de souffrir un tout petit peu plus. On comprend certaines situations dans les matchs où même si on n'a pas le ballon, où on souffre, on sait qu'on va être solide, puis qu'on ne va pas se faire encaisser un but en fin de compte, parce qu'on comprend que ces situations-là, il faut être un peu plus intelligent, un peu plus serré, c'est que c'est correct d'absorber un peu plus de pression, puis qu'à notre tour, regarde les 15 prochaines minutes, ça va être à notre tour d'en donner. Donc, je pense qu'en tant qu'équipe, on comprend mieux ces moments-là, comment gérer des matchs, contre qui on joue, le type de profil contre certaines équipes contre qui on joue. Jouer la Copa América comparé à jouer des équipes européennes, c'est 2 styles complètement différents. C'était beaucoup plus dans le tapis 50-50 dans la Copa América, on l'a vu. Puis c'est un peu plus côté tacticien lorsqu'on a affronté les équipes européennes. Et donc on a compris ces moments-là, comment payer, comment faire payer l'autre équipe sur certains moments.
Donc, si on vient à la communication, il faut s'assurer que toute l'équipe soit sur la même page ou dans le même esprit aussi.
Ça
en quelque
passe
sorte.
par la communication, que ça soit direct ou... ouais, vas-y.
Puis vous avez fait des ateliers d'entrevue aussi, est-ce que je comprends? Il y a plein de trucs que vous avez pris pour améliorer ça. Toi, tu as interviewé un coéquipier ou quelque chose?
Ça a été certaines petites workshops, si tu me permets l'expression. Désolé.
T'as-tu ramené le Max Crépeau show? C'est ça la question.
Aux Québécois, oui, mais pas aux anglophones, ils me connaissent, là, mais
parce
c'est
que
différent.
le Max Crépeau show, c'était avec Vendry.
C'était Vandou, Max Tissot, As, Il a été témoin de certains épisodes, ouais.
Puis ça, c'était votre podcast avant que les podcasts soient cool.
Ouais, on était en avance sur tout le monde.
Le Max Crépeau show, pas le Max Crépeau show aussi, qu'on a vu dans certaines soirées aussi.
Ça, c'est moi puis Sam différemment après les victoires.
OK. Est-ce qu'on est rendu... parce que le temps nous presse, on va tranquillement ouvrir aussi le reste de la discussion à la salle aussi.
Ouais, moi, j'aurais peut-être encore une ou deux questions. Two more, actually. You were talking about politics earlier on. We were Fred and I know you never shy away from giving an answer, but Fred and I were wondering, do we go down that route? You opened a bay window for us, so I'll ask you. Tyler Adams, at the last World Cup, there was a situation with Iran. Politically, it got, let's call it, interesting. Is that something you're considering? Knowing what the relations are like, it can change from one day to the next, but is there a bit of coaching that goes into getting players ready for questions that could be political and it's not their domain of expertise?
You know, when you speak about that Tyler Adams incident, maybe not all of you know, is he pronounced Iran as Iran, and then the Iranian media attacked him for not understanding how to pronounce it, and then he responded by saying, "Oh, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong, and I would like to learn more about it." And you know, I coached Tyler when he was 15, so he's one of the players that I helped groom. And obviously, then I coached him, and I coached him on 3 different teams. And I texted him when he did that, and I said, of all the things that you've ever done in your life and in your career, I've never been more proud of you than how you handled that moment. Wow. And I think more than preparing them for being media savvy and being on the world stage, it's more about continuing to try to encourage them to believe in themselves and access the positive qualities that they have as people. And by the way, in this group, that's not hard to do, right? They're really genuinely careful thinkers, good people that care about one another and care about the right things, you know, and they play football because they love it and they're good at it, but they know about the responsibility that it carries and what it means in the community, you know, and we've done things in the past weeks that in communities that we're in and making sure that we represent Canada in all the right ways. So and anytime I ask these guys to do anything, or even when I said, hey, it's my idea that when we go to Montreal that you guys go out in the clubs, that we have open training sessions, that we do this with coaching clinics, that we make you guys accessible. Alphonso Davies was the first one to say, let's do it. That's awesome. You know, so they're those kinds of people. So I know from being around them that when they're put on the world stage, that they'll be ready to represent themselves both on the field and off.
And I might have one last one. I remember when you left Montreal a bit sooner than everybody expected, I think yourself included, you took a pause. The reflex could have been, I'm jumping right back in because I want to make sure that after what was a decent 2012 in the end, I get back on the horse. You decided to do the opposite because you very bluntly said that there was no work-life balance or family and work balance. You went off on a big trip, what was it, 6 months?
Yeah.
Is there any sort of work-life balance at the moment? I'm hearing everything you're talking about, traveling the world. You're giving an awful lot. And what does that do to Jesse Marsch's life?
Yeah, I mean, this is a lot less stressful than coaching in the Premier League, I can tell you that. The thing that I think in life, it's about finding a good fit for people around you and people where people value the same things that you do and vice versa. And so when I left Leeds United and I was in a massive pressure cooker and unable to really ever be myself because there was so much scrutiny for anything and everything I did, and frankly culturally there wasn't the connection that I really wanted, that was every football conversation I had after that was, what is the identity of the project? What is the identity of the people? What do they care about? And the worst part about being a manager is that I'm usually only judged by wins and losses, right? Max could probably say he's only judged by his save percentage, or right. And as people, I think we think of ourselves as so much more. And certainly I know that about Max because he's a highly intelligent, highly intellectual person, right? And when that's the case, as much as we love this sport and we have dedicated our lives to it, we are constantly searching for a bigger meaning within the sport. And so that's what this has meant to me. And I've said that my day job is to make sure that in 2026 that these guys are as prepared as they possibly can be to light the country on fire. But my passion project is working with the youth, getting to know the coaches, getting to know the people, developing the sport in the country, like doing everything we can so that the future of these guys, like a lot of these guys, Max was a little bit lucky. He was a big talent when he was young, and he signed a professional contract when he was 18. And of course, he had his ups and downs, but he has had a pretty linear career path. A lot of guys like Moise Bombito had to go to junior college and then another college and then was a pro and then came here. And a lot of these guys have had very complicated development paths, and I think it's our job as a CSA to give more players opportunities at young age to have the least path of resistance so that they have a best chance to be successful at the youngest age so that they can really achieve the potential that they can.
Is that why you challenged, I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but you challenged the CPL to get younger? Mm-hmm. Is that one of the reasons?
Well, look, I mean, there's two things about the CPL. I want to see the younger talent given more opportunities, and I know that from my time with working with young players like Tyler Adams, like Max Crépeau, that when you give these players opportunities at young ages, that they just develop faster and they'll almost always exceed your expectations. And frankly, it's a proper business model for the CPL. Yeah. Like, it needs to be a development league, and it will only survive financially if it develops young players, and specifically young Canadian players. So I'm not telling them how to run their business, but I've seen it through Red Bull. I've seen it firsthand, what it's like when you develop young players and give them opportunities, and then have the type of club that also is willing to help them move on and benefit from it financially, and then continue to reinvest in the youth and continue to reinvest in coaching development, in youth development, in infrastructure and clubs. That is the way to be successful.
That statement fueled a lot of our podcasts, and it's
Yeah, we talk about you.
So you guys agreed? You guys agreed with me?
We agree 100%.
All right, well done.
100%.
Well done.
Yeah. Merci. Bon, est-ce qu'on... Question et réponse aussi, ultimement, dans quelques instants. Juste vous dire, une parenthèse, te parler de 2010, où Jesse Marsch était assistant-entraîneur pour vous situer.
Moi, j'ai pas précisé.
Non, mais juste pour la petite histoire, les États-Unis ont fini premier du groupe devant l'Angleterre. Ils se sont qualifiés. Et après, il y avait la Slovénie et l'Algérie aussi. Voilà, top of the head, but... 2010.
Fred voulait juste vous montrer qu'il a fait ses recherches.
Non, mais j'ai écouté, j'étais dans ma TV.
GPT.
Bon, alors...
il dit chat GPT.
Chat GPT, ouais. Écoute, on vieillit, mon gars. Chat GPT pour Goaler, ça s'en vient, tu vas voir. Vous allez lever votre main si vous avez une question pour Jesse ou Max, si vous voulez d'ailleurs qu'on traduise en anglais ou si on peut le faire. Je vais m'approcher, moi, et puis je vais vous passer mon propre micro aussi.
Bonjour. J'ai une question par rapport aux joueurs binationaux. I'm going to say it in English. So basically, I was double national players, and I was listening to their conversation between my son and his friends, and they were asking that if they're going to go pro, what national team they're going to play for. Is it Canada or their original or the country of their parents? And the numbers were scary. My question for you, is that a strategy for CSA or for that you're trying to work on those young players so they can play for Canada in the future?
Yeah, so it's one of the things I love about Canada is how many players and people have heritage and backgrounds from different countries and coming here to Canada and still being able to stick true to what their heritage is, but also feeling very Canadian. And so we've done a lot of research from some of the youth national teams and like trying to find out players from different nationalities. And then obviously with the first team, and we've recruited guys like Nico Segur and Daniel Jebison and Promise David and, players like this. But you know what we've really been careful of, really, really careful, is to make sure that those players really feel Canadian. And we do have some players on our team with English accents, like Luc de Fougerolles, for example. But Luc de Fougerolles' family, a lot of them are here in Montreal. He's going to have like 25 family members at the match, and he really it resonates with him being Canadian. And I think that we can't lose track of that. It's really important that these guys a lot of them have very familiar backgrounds or similar backgrounds where they're first and second generation. In the home, maybe they speak a different language. We have French and English happening all around the meal tables, and there's a real multicultural feel to exactly what the national team is. But when the national anthem gets played and those guys put on the jersey, they couldn't be more proud to represent this country, right? And it's funny because as an American, this is really important to me, that the identity of the national team is exactly what Canada needs, and we have to represent that perfectly. And so that even means, I don't know if you've seen how many Canadian coaches I've brought into the staff and this rotating Canadian coach position that we have in our staff, but I continue to try to find the right coaches to integrate into what we're doing with the national team, into what we're doing with the youth national team. And for me, a big goal of mine is that whenever I leave this job, that it's a Canadian that takes it over, and that it's all Canadians that take it over from here. So we're doing a lot of the dual national, but still trying to make sure that in the end, that it's very Canadian.
Une autre question? Another question?
Oui. On va laisser le temps de...
Vas-y, fais ton animateur de foule pendant ce temps-là, Fred. Excellent.
Des bars aussi, hein. Tu peux faire tirer des shooters. OK.
Hi, Coach. Thank you for coming. Also a question for Max. So you were talking about you visiting players during your free time. How much important is for you to visit players during their season, during their clubs, and do you build a relationship for there? And do you also visit players that are not select by the team?
Yeah. Honestly, it was great to go to the grassroots, to where we are born and raised, and I think it's a responsibility not only for me being born and raised here, but for every guy. I think we're role models into our society as well. So what we do on and off the field is very important. And what I do like, it's the face-to-face connections, because for me, I remember when I was big like this, going to watch some games and having the I'll say the OGs of the Montreal Impact back then, having pictures and having signatures, it's marked me in a way. And so I'm trying to give back to those those younger generations, because for me, it's a moment that marked me, and that's a reason why I fell in love and why I gave so much to my sport, is because these little gestures made the difference at the end of the day.
And from a manager's perspective, how do you pick and choose? Is it basically in the moment you look at matches, your own phone calls, and then you say this is worthy or this kind of merits a visit?
I mean, I usually have certain players that I think, I need to go check in with. And again, usually it's maybe if they're injured or they're not playing as much, or just to kind of make sure to
pick me up.
Yeah, like encourage them to keep them focused. And encourage them, and then I can kind of cluster some of the matches that are together and kind of see as many guys as I can. I call it the amazing race a lot, because I'm like catching planes and trains and automobiles and buses and getting to there and going, but I love it, right? And then, when I get to the stadiums, a lot of the clubs, they treat the national team coaches really well. They welcome us. They make us feel like part of things. But it's also interesting to see the culture of different clubs and how open they are, how welcoming they are or not. I won't tell you the good and the bad, but I will say this, that seeing the players and being in stadium and like being their biggest fans and cheering them on is such a great feeling, you know, and they know that. They know when I'm there that I'm not the type of coach that when I'm watching them or when I'm reinforcing certain things with them, like, why did you do that and why did you do this? It's more like, keep going here and keep doing this, and you know, this is important and that was great, and keep pushing. And you know, I mean, they're still young men and they're still like in their lives, you know, very exposed in what this sport is, and online everybody has a lot to say about what they do and how they do it, and I want to be a very positive force in their lives, right? And that's what I try to do.
Juste par rapport à la question, on va revenir face à face. Max, c'était qui tes idoles ici, les anciens de l'Impact de Montréal? Est-ce qu'il y a des...
Franchement, je m'en souviens, j'étais au collège français, puis Pat Leduc était coach à mon école secondaire. Et je me souviens très bien qu'après un entraînement, un après-midi, j'ai demandé une signature. J'aimais beaucoup David Test. Hein?
Il a dit non.
Il m'a dit oui, quand même. Rocco, c'était un bon. Ali Gerba, évidemment, un bon ami maintenant. Hey, Gab, es-tu ici?
Oui.
Gab avec Nevio.
Les deux premiers sur le mur de la renommée.
Ouais.
C'est des OG. Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions aussi avant de terminer? Oui, vas-y.
On va les prendre rapidement, je pense, parce qu'après, on va se faire taper sur les doigts si on n'a pas le temps d'aller voir l'Australie.
Okay, so I have two quick questions. One is like, why choosing New Jersey as the second location for the second friendly match? Because, I mean, we don't really see national team here a lot in Canada. So, I mean, Montreal, we're lucky because we are in a big city. But I'm just wondering, like, in terms of choosing locations to play the national team matches, like, why don't you play in Canada, you know, for the second match? And the other thing I noticed is our opponent, Australia, their social media has 6 times as many followers as our national team. I know they're soccer because I'm, you know, China.
Our social media manager is right there.
I mean, because I'm from China, because you know, we played the Asian qualifications. We lost twice against the Socceroos. So their name is very catchy. It's Socceroos. Yeah. And versus ours is Canada national team. So sometimes I misspell them. CANMNT, Canadian national team. Yeah. And I noticed before we used to put like men's national team and the women's and U20, you know, all these teams in the same social media account. Now it's like separate. But I'm just thinking like we should find a more catchy name so that people can, you know, search on social media and we'll find the Canadian national team instead of using like Man national team.
Or we can. I like your shirt.
Yeah,
I like your shirt.
This is what I bought on the website for the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. So we can.
I like it.
I'm very proud of this jersey.
Yeah.
It's a very catchy name because we're unique. We have like French and English, so it's like important to you know, please the audience in the country. But it's also very important that we can find a common name, like, you know, like Maple Leaf or whatever. Like, you know.
Do you have a CV or a resume you can give us?
I work at Concordia University. I mean,
all right,
in Montreal. Like I love soccer. I'm a big fan. I grew up watching soccer, but. I just feel like you know, for Canadian, I mean, hockey obviously is the, you know, the biggest sports here, but I mean, soccer should be more. I mean, we should have more people following soccer also on social media, like go to watch matches. So we would love to see more matches here in Canada. I mean, in, you know, Montreal and also in Ottawa, in other cities. And I also find our stadiums actually, to be honest, is very modest compared to like the stadiums I've been to in, let's say, Europe and China. Like,
so less matches in New Jersey, more in Canada.
More in Canada.
That's an interesting question.
Well, let me answer it very quickly and succinctly, hopefully. So yeah, good. Look, it was great. We would. This has been one of the things. I think I've been the coach for 19 games maybe, and I think we've played 5 at home, or no, 22 games and 5 at home. So we haven't played many here, and it's one of the things that I regret about the experience that we have is that we haven't had enough touch points with our community and enough chances for our fans to root on our players. We are raising money, frankly, so that we can have more. We can control what we do better. right? Is right now, for various different reasons, we're not as well funded as we need to be, but we've done a ton of fundraising. We've already raised millions of dollars. Our goal is to raise $25 million by the end of 2026, and we're going to definitely get there. But the reality of this situation was we really wanted to play here in Montreal, so we got a promoter to help us take care of that, because internally we don't have enough employees to promote all these games and control all the venues ourselves, so we have to go outside to hire companies. And then we're also trying to balance it with get the best opponents possible. So when we knew we could get Colombia, and we were really excited about that, in order for the promoter to make sense of it financially, we had to play in New York because there's a lot of Colombians there. But obviously we were like, well, why not play 2 in Montreal, right? And what would that look like? So we've talked about all these things, and we're always trying to maximize the overall potential of what the experience is for the team, how financially viable the federation can be, and then what's the experience for the fans, and how often can we do that all together. The beauty is we do have a match on Friday that represents all of the best of those things, right? We're going to have a sold-out stadium here. There's going to be tons of energy. The team is really good, and the fans are going to be awesome. So we should really just be appreciating that for right now, okay? And then the other part is I think our social media is doing a good job, but part of that is maybe that you might be right. Maybe we need more access and cleverness, and we'll talk with Adam, okay? We'll talk with Adam after that. What's his email? But we're trying to continue. We're putting out documentaries. We're doing a lot to like make sure that this team becomes more and more accessible. Mostly because the players are awesome, right? They're really, really great players, and they're really, really incredible people.
Merci, je pense que c'est tout le temps qu'on a.
T'as pas de bon on it?
Pour faire une précision aussi pour les gens qui nous écoutent aussi du podcast, le Canada joue vendredi le 10 octobre au Stade Saputo, mais aussi au Red Bull, au Sports Illustrated Stadium, pas le Red Bull, ancien Red Bull Arena contre la Colombie aussi.
By the way, these are the 2 stadiums of the teams that I coached.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
So maybe
go Montreal to Red Bull Stadium.
Exactly.
Red Bull Arena was easier to say than Sports Illustrated Stadium.
Yeah, I'm not saying Sports Illustrated Stadium.
Red
Bull Arena.
Comment une arena devient un stade aussi, c'est une question qu'on s'est souvent posée. OK. D'abord, merci beaucoup d'avoir été là. Je vous invite à rester pour ceux qui sont sur place. Ceux qui sont dans leur char, vous faites ce que vous voulez. Mais si vous êtes ici, restez. Il y a un verre qu'on va prendre ensemble aussi après. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été là. Un grand merci au sélectionneur Jesse Marsch qui était avec nous.
Thank you.
13 years, still fire. It feels like the first day again. Merci encore, merci beaucoup. Merci Maxime Crépeau. Merci.
Merci aussi au CF Montréal et Canada Soccer d'avoir facilité ça, parce que comme première, c'était difficile de demander mieux comme invité. Un gros merci. Ça lance bien les choses pour Chaos Sport TV et Plein.
Et merci à Dominique, Anthony, Jacob et William de Chaos Sport TV qui sont, nous, notre colonne vertébrale aussi dans ce qu'on va faire dans les prochaines semaines. Voilà.
Terminé?
J'en perds la voix. Oui, c'est terminé. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été là. C'était
Bonne
Plein
chance.
première édition.
Bonne chance, mes amis.
Merci.